Hi, I'm Mikael with DbVisualizer. Today I'll be showing you the basics of browsing and managing your database using our tool. We'll create a connection. We'll also dive in and look at the various ways to navigate, to explore, to manage various content and parts of the database. So let's dive in. First thing I'm going to do is create a connection. I'll do that up here, and you get two different options. You can start via a URL, or you can create a connection without one. So let's start here. And here I'm presented with a long list of databases. And actually, as you can see, there's multiple different SQL servers, SAPs, Oracles, MySQLs, and that's because this is actually a list of different drivers. And these drivers work basically out of the box with DbVisualizer, but you can also upload basically any driver you want. Today, we're gonna connect to a Postgres database. Now, we're presented with a connection pane. So the first thing we're gonna do is create a name for it. We don't need any notes, and we're actually connecting to localhost. So this is the server, others call it host. So this is also where you could enter something like an IP for what, etc. We won't do that today. The host can also be a URL of sorts, but today we're just gonna do localhost here. Define the port. Our port is actually like this. Database name, we'll change that. And then the user ID, the password. And then you can also use something like an SSH tunnel. But we'll look into these configurations more in depth when it comes to the security video, to make sure that you can create a very reliable, stable, secure connection to your database. For now, we're just going to keep it simple. Connect to a localhost database. And then you have a couple of buttons down here. This is very useful if you are connecting to non-local hosts and you want to see that you're actually finding the right machine, so you can ping the server. And then it says that you successfully pinged the server, even if your credentials might not work. Now you can connect, and you'll get a connection message stating what Postgres version you're using, the JDBC driver you're using, and all that stuff. You get a nice little green checkbox, and we are connected. So that's the first way to create a connection. Now I wanted to show you the other way as well, when you start with a URL. So let's do that now. So then you get this dialog. And what you're going to want to do here is that you want to paste in the JDBC database URL that you have. So that's what I'm going to do now. And as you can see, it defines basically what we're trying to do here. So we're connecting to Postgres, to the local host via the port number and the database. So similar type of credentials that you would use in the previous step, but everything's baked into the URL. And then it selects the driver. You can also change the driver here if you want to. And then I click OK, and then I'm presented with a very similar screen. But the URL is already pre-filled, so the only thing I need to do now is to add my details. And then I'll change the name of this connection to Postgres demo URL. Connect, and I get the same message. So now, in the navigation tree, we have two different connections. One for the demo, one for the demo URL. These connections do target the same database. So you're going to see exactly the same thing within, but it's just two different ways to connect the database. So now that we've connected, let's see what's in the database. We'll open the tree like this. You're going to see that the database that we set in our connection details, well, rather this one, the connection details, that's now set as the default database. So we move into this, and we see a lot of different tables, and we have more things. We have views, materialized views, indexes, triggers. There's a whole lot of things that can live within the database. And if you want to open any of these objects, then you just double click them, and you get all of the data, for example, that lies within the categories table. And if there's anything that you think might have changed in the database, especially in this tree, we have this refresh button here that you can click, which refreshes the database tree from the connection itself. So if there's new tables added, removed, whatever have you, then that's a way to kind of visualize those changes also within your environment. Now, we also have a filtering option. So as I'm sure you're aware, when you work with databases, it is likely that you'll stumble upon an occasion when the database has a bunch of different things in it, and it's really hard to navigate and understand the different objects. So what you're going to want to do in that case is that you want to filter the view so that you find only what's relevant for you. So in this case, we have a couple of different options for you. Now, one of the simplest ones that is just pretty blunt but effective is to only show the default database and schema. So by clicking that, and as you saw before, when we go into the databases, we're actually only see the ecom database, because that's what we added to our connection configuration, right? So that's the default one. And it says 1 of 4 because it's hiding the rest. Now we can of course go much further, and we can show the inline filter pane. That pops up down here. And then for anything that we want to filter, so say the tables, for example, I just want to show something where the label begins with, there we go, product. Yeah. And I refresh the view. Then I've filtered down the list of tables to only show 2 of 11, which is the products tables. And then by clicking here, I can also just remove that condition, refresh, and then all the tables are back. So that's just a small example in a short list, which doesn't necessarily need to be filtered. But you can see how that can be very useful. You also have things like regex. You have not like, ends with, begins with, is empty, is not empty. All of these different things that just makes sure that you can create a view of the database that best works for whatever use case you're in. Great. So there's also, let's go back to here. I'll remove the inline pane. There's also a filter editor. So this is pretty advanced. We won't go through all of the different details, but I did want to show you the fact that you can deselect the different objects that you don't want to appear in the tree here. So what we'll do is that we'll click plus, we'll add the name, only tables, create, and then you're going to see that filter set is only tables. So when we only want to look at the tables, we can go down, we can say, okay, so here's tables, great. But we don't want foreign tables. We don't want views, materialized views, indexes, triggers, procedures, functions, rules, sequences, domains, aggregates, operations, types, foreign servers. We don't want privileges, not even the DBA view. Okay, so we click, and then we just click OK, bam. Then you're going to see here. So inside of this connection now, we're only going to see the tables, which in itself also cleans up this space if you only want to work with the tables. Another small but interesting feature to mention here is that when you work with the different connections, you might have databases in production, you might have the various sandbox dev environments, what have you. And if the list is long and you work with different objects from different databases, it's pretty important to understand kind of what environment are you in right now. So what you're able to do here in DbVisualizer is actually to create a coloring system for them. So by double clicking, you can go to properties, and under Postgres, you can set a color and border. So say that this is our production environment. You can set that to red and set a warning border around everything. So whenever you see this border, you know that, oh, making changes here has some risks to it. And you're also going to see that the tab itself changed color. And similarly, if you go in and we open orders, let's do it in a new tab, you're going to see that that tab also turns red, and you have the same kind of warning banner around it. So if I go in here and change any of the data, which I'll change this, ooh, scary in the demo database, I'll do it, but then I have the entire visual cues on that this is something to do with care. So, and you're also going to see the different border, the different color, all of that stuff over here. So then to turn it off, you just simply do the same thing. You go down to color and say none and none, apply, and everything's back to normal. Okay, great. So as I'm in the database working with different objects, there's also different ways to get them to open and work the way that you want them to. So you have different options to open. You can open in a tab, open in a new tab, open in a floating tab. So this is what a floating tab looks like, which might be interesting if you want to look at the data while you type a query or whatever have you. Now, at the very end here, you have two different options, which can be enabled or not. So by default, they're disabled, but you have an option to auto scroll to object view tab. What that means is that by enabling it, now it's on, you open the object just by clicking it once. Now, I typically have that off, but what I do have on is the auto scroll from object view tab. So what that means is that if I open some of these, oh, that's the same tab, but I want to create a couple of tabs now. So if I have a couple of tabs, then if I have this setting to on, to enabled, then what you're going to see is that when I change tab here, click, the indicator over in the tree also follows you. So when I change the tab, I'm also always aware of where I am inside the database. I find that very handy, but I mean, that's a personal preference. So let's remove some of these. Okay, let's go back to the non-filtered view. So now, we're in the database, we've connected, we have everything set up the way that we want to, and want to start doing things. What I wanted to show you is that you can do a lot of things directly from this kind of navigation area, from the left-hand tree. Because by going into a table, yes, you can open it and do everything else, but you can also right-click it. And when you do that, you get options for altering the table, renaming the table, emptying, dropping, commenting, import, export, create, index, you get it. Like you can do a bunch of stuff in here. So for example, let's go into categories and we alter the table. So here you can do whatever you want. So you want to change this from text to another data type, go ahead. You want to change the name, go ahead. Let's say we create a value called category family. Is that a text? Well, yes, I guess it is. JSON, JSONB, whatever. Is it nullable? Is it not? But just for argument's sake, let's change this to parent ID. We don't want to have the word category anymore. And then what you're going to notice is that at the very bottom here, we're previewing the SQL that's going to run if you are to execute the changes. So let's do that now. Execute. Do you really want to alter the table? Yes, I do. And then inside of the table, you're now going to see that it says parent ID instead of what it used to do. So that's great. Do we want to alter that back? Probably category ID. And then we want to remove that. We'll look at the SQL. So it alters, it removes the category family, and it changes the name from parent ID to parent category ID. We execute, we say yes. Great, we go back and look, we'll see only the 3 columns, parent category ID, all set. So you can directly just rename the table, you can drop the table, you can do all of these different things just from in here. And that's very useful if you don't want to write queries for exactly everything, and just do it with a couple of clicks instead. So let's go to the table products. In this view, you see a lot of different tabs. So it contains all of the information about this particular table. So what columns it has, what data it has. You can go in here and you can edit things directly. So now it's the Laptop Pro 16. You click save and Laptop Pro 16 is down here. Great, save to the database. Row count, primary key, indexes, grants, right, references. So references is interesting for many different ways, but also mainly to understand the database. So now that we're at products, it shows you all of the connections that it has to other tables with foreign keys. So if you want to look at the entire set of tables, you can double click tables, click references, and then you get the even larger set of tables. And by clicking them, you can see how they're linked together with different layouts. So you can do hierarchical, organic, orthogonal, circular, and all of these are really helpful depending on the database to look for dependencies between the tables and much more. So if you have a big database with a bunch of different objects in it and you want to navigate and find what you want, you can do that with the filters, but I also want to show you another trick. And it's by going into the connection, you double click the connection itself. Over here, you have a search tab. So in here, if you want to find anything in the database for a product, you can use the asterisk as a wildcard. You click search, and then you'll find all of the different objects within the database that mentions product one way or another. Of course, you can do the same thing with reviews, and then you're going to see the table for reviews. And if you want to wildcard it, you get a lot more hits this way. So it's just another way to find what you are after in a nice and easy way. So while we're in reviews, let's see if we can add some. You can then click import table data, and you can then set the path to where the file you want to import is. You can also locate it this way. But so we have it here. We click next, delimiters, the various options, the data, great. Date formats, you can go into all of the details, but the default stuff typically works well. And then here you're going to see how it maps the data from the CSV file. So as this is a serial data type, I'm actually just going to leave that blank so that it generates the IDs itself. I'll click next and then import. Bam, bam, success, added 10 reviews. We close this and we reload the table. Hey, we have reviews inside of our reviews table. So you can import data directly from the right-click menu. You can alter the tables. You can change all of these different things. You can look at the relationships or the ERD diagrams to understand the relationships between different objects. You can filter the views to the best of it so that it matches your preferred way of working. And then to wrap everything up, you can also do this per workspace. So you'll find the different workspaces, and as you can imagine, I have a couple of them. This one that we're in right now is for demo. But by doing that, you can set the different connections, the sorting, the colors, the filters, the everything based on the workspace that you're in. So based on the project that you're currently working on, which is very useful. So that's it. That's the basics of exploring and navigating. Today we focus mostly on the left-hand side of the application, which is to connect to a database, to dive in, to look at what's in it, to do contextual actions, to alter a table, for example, without needing to write SQL ourselves. We have much more videos coming up. We also want to show you how to write and run SQL scripts, how to work with the result set, how to work with our command line interface, its security features. There's a ton more things we want to show you. So I hope to see you in those videos. But until then, take care. See you soon.